veritable honeypot of wonderfulness that will just continue to get improved. If any of you have ever played World of Warcraft, you know that they continuously go through stat squishes.
Dropping items up to gear score 515.
Well, the honeymoon period of The Division 2 is finally drawing to a close, and they haven't even finished releasing the entire base game yet. Just squeezing out the final world tier took an entire month. Now players have had the time to fully experience the bugs, broken balancing and lackluster PvP, many are finally becoming receptive to engaging in some slightly more grown-up and mature discussions about the state of the game. You know, about the problems. You don't just have to say how super hyped you are anymore. You can tell the truth, basically. It's okay. Let it out. You'll feel so liberated if you can just say, I like The Division 2, but holy fuck it's got a lot of problems, and it's not even finished. My review of the game was initially met with a lot of anger and hostility. Strange now that after a month, people are starting to sidle up to me and say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I think you may have had a point. Still, overall, it got a relatively decent reception. I got 747 likes, and I got 403 of those little upside down likes too. That makes a grand total of over 1,000 likes. Winning. So what's the general state of play with The Division 2 currently? Now the game is released and the bulk of the first wave of predatory microtransactions and pedo caches are in place, Massive Entertainment can finally hunker down and focus on the monumental task of finishing the game and fixing all the broken shit that they threw out of the door a mere 5 weeks ago, when they were more preoccupied with selling $11 outfits that make your character look like an even bigger dickhead than you feel if you actually bought it. And before that random guy says, but you can earn all the cosmetic items for free in game. Well, technically that might be true, if you own a sweatshop in Indonesia and keep your account playing 24 hours a day. It might be possible, subject to future content releases, but the reality is that some bright spark on Reddit mined all the data, and The Division 2 only has 85% of the free cosmetics that The Division 1 had. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. The Division 2 has 85% less lootable free cosmetic items than the first game. And some of the caches are harder to earn now. And there are timed exclusive items. So yeah, good news for Korean gold farmers, not such good news for normal people who need to eat, sleep, and actually get out of their chair when they take a shit. Sadly though, according to the statistics, playing to excess does not seem to be the norm, and the arse has firmly fallen out of the Twitch viewing figures, dropping from an average of 50,000 viewers per day to a mere 5,000. That's 45,000 viewers lost in 5 weeks. Obviously, a lot of big high-profile streamers dropped the game like a puking baby once Ubisoft stopped paying them to play it every day. Not even kidding. But that only accounts for 44,000 of the lost views. What happened to the other 1,000 viewers who were genuinely interested in the game? Albeit vaguely. On a more serious note, I have recently received a rather stern message from Ubisoft, and as a result, in a rare show of humility, I have to reluctantly make not one but two apologies because of inaccurate and unfair statements I made in my very reasonable Division 2 review. I need to apologise for my criticism of Ubisoft and Red Storm Studios. You know, the World of Warcraft guys. Ubisoft has expressed their profound displeasure with me blaming them for the fucking dreadfully unfinished state of the Division 2, and they have stated in no uncertain terms that they would like me to specifically blame Massive Entertainment in Malmo for the litany of fuck-ups still present in the game at launch. Ubisoft was also unhappy that I blamed Red Storm for the moronic Harry Potter weapon balancing, and would like me to make clear that this was Massive Entertainment's fault as well. They pointed out that Red Storm was the studio that fucked up the PvP, and Ubisoft would like me to be clearer about this in future. Rather bizarrely, other than those points, they thought my review was perfectly fair. Well, who am I to refuse a direct instruction from Ubisoft? I am, after all, their humble servant. So from now on, I will dutifully obey and pointedly let everyone know that Massive Entertainment fucked up the game, Massive Entertainment fucked up the weapon balancing, and Red Storm fucked up the PvP. Who would have thought that being told off could be so much fucking fun? On a similarly positive note, some nice person fixed my key mapping issue, so now I can run without turning off my recordings. Alt has now been assigned instead of F. Thank you for that. I feel like a little developer angel is watching over me. In a non-creepy way. Any chance you could fix the conflict between my spacebar and backpedal keybind now, please? Every time I go into photo mode and try and take a picture, I pull out. That sentence sounded much less weird in my head. In all fairness, there's been a fair amount of bug fixing going on. The recalibration table no longer breaks the game, the kiddie fiddler on the roof has stopped teleporting every time you go near him, and the strobing epilepsy warning is now regularly strobing less. And game-induced epileptic fits are down by over 75%. We still haven't reached Base Camp 1 on our epic climb up the Everest of bugs and broken shit, but at least we've got as far as packing the rucksack and telling people about our plans. Over a pint in the pub. Roadmap, anyone? I have to say that I'm impressed with the public relations genius demonstrated by Massive with them releasing the book The Division Broken Dawn by Alex Irvin to coincide with the launch of the game. I'm stunned by this masterstroke move to confuse Google search algorithms. For weeks, if you did a search for The Division 2 is Broken, all the hits would be for the fucking book. Talk about turning a problem into an opportunity. Release a broken game at the same time as a book with the word broken in the title. Confuse the fuck out of the Google search engine and get free promotion for the paperback. That is a stroke of manipulative propaganda genius right there. When this game winds up, the PR team should seriously consider working for the Chinese Ministry of Propaganda and Social Control. Oh yeah, I forgot. They already do. There are continued calls to address the issues of enemy reinforcements spawning behind the player, bursting out of doors next to the player, or as is often happening, just spawning right between your fucking legs completely at random. The worst time this happened to me was after clearing an elite control point, and just as I was casually sauntering over to loot the chests, a random gaggle of fucks spawned literally on top of me, and whilst the two Russia bitches twatted me in the head with their telescopic dildos, their friends started shooting me in the cooch. I died. I may have uttered some slightly angry words at this point. The spawn locations, randomness and triggers all need a fix. Whilst we're on the topic of NPCs, in the name of everything that is holy, please sort out the friendly NPCs and settlers, especially when they're acting as reinforcements during an assault on a control point, because frankly, they are unlikable, not worth saving, and certainly not worth bringing to a fucking gunfight. First off, they can't fight for shit. Sometimes they're actually worse than useless. They are wearing stupid fucking outfits. Seriously, who the fuck assaults fortified military positions manned by heavily armed soldiers wearing a pork pie hat and fucking flippy floppies? Okay, I know one person who might possibly do that, but in a video game, it looks fucking stupid. It's like watching a remake of Mad Max where they replaced Max Rokitansky with Justin fucking Timberlake. Also, the leader always YOLOs at the biggest elite and dies almost immediately. It's frankly embarrassing to watch. They're like a suicide bomber who forgot to pack either a gun or a bomb. They just seem to run up to the biggest, baddest enemy NPC, get their attention and stand there waiting to get one-shotted. The NPCs are also well known for saying incredibly annoying, douchey things. Their voice clips need an overhaul. You single-handedly cap a control point despite their best efforts to fuck it up, and then they make some comment like, "Thanks for the assist." Really? Assist? Most of these cunts are only good for body blocking and screaming like babies, and at the end, they act like they took the objective. I would also recommend generally doing some work on the NPCs when they help during a control point attack. Currently, they have a habit of just vanishing or running off into the distance during the final waves, leaving the solo player to get butt-fucked by the yellow elites who zerg you. This all seriously needs some work. I'm sorry, but the friendly NPCs are spoiling the PvE. They are entirely unsympathetic and detract from both the narrative and the gameplay. We're supposed to care about saving these people, but the general consensus at the moment is that friendly NPCs are the most hated fucking characters in the Division 2. They're just unsympathetic. They're like the annoying girlfriend in a shit horror movie. You're just waiting there for her to get killed by the bad guy. The loot algorithm also appears to be slightly fucked. I was reassured by Nicky, the loot master in chief at Massive Entertainment, the guys who fucked up the weapon balancing, there you go Ubisoft, that the item level of your loot drops is based on the loot level of the highest item in your possession, either in your stash or in your bag. I will try and say this as politely as possible, but I think that's bollocks. After struggling to level up to 500 over many days, whilst a friend of mine did it in one session, I did an empirical test. I decided to ignore the official explanation and delete every single fucking low level item on my person and only wear my highest level item in each slot. Abra-ca-fucking-dabra. I was almost 500 in a few hours. I don't know precisely what scientifically is going on, but based on my test alone, the official explanation seems wrong. Lower level items in your possessions may be dragging down the quality of your loot rolls, on PC at least. So stick it in your stash if you want to keep it, else get rid of lower level items if you want to gear up fastest. But one of my latest theories is, to quote my tweet, I'm becoming suspicious that unless you equip the highest gear score item at least once, the game won't register this on the gear score calculations and the loot algorithm won't factor it into the loot drop values. It's possible that just having high gear score items in your bag isn't enough. You have to actually equip them in each slot once and then unequip them, or you'll carry on getting lower level gear. Anyway, tests are going on as we speak. I also have to comment on Massive's heavy-handed stance on exploits in the game. Apparently part of the broken behaviour of the reinforcement NPCs is caused by some botched anti-exploit fix, which so far only seems to work at penalising solo players. Then there was the occasion where they shut down all the fucking servers because someone found out a way to get an extra loot drop from logging out. Fucking bravo, Massive. The game is in a fucking mess. The servers are in a fucking mess. The mods are in a fucking mess. But dear God, let's go to DEFCON 1 because someone might use an exploit to get one free fucking shoe. Don't waste your precious bug fixing time and our precious playing time stopping someone glitching a fucking shoe. There is more pressing work to be done. Jesus, everyone is talking about the balancing issues in The Division 2. Well, how about balancing your fucking priorities? Fixing bugged missions and teleporting NPCs is, in my opinion, a little bit more important than fixing a loot exploit in a video game that constantly shits loot at you like monkeys throw shit through the bars of a cage. Well, it is with no small amount of bitter disappointment that I have to discuss the most recent state of the game and the impending balancing changes. Frankly, I don't know what was more weird, the fact that pretty much the whole state of the game was dedicated to making changes to the Division to prioritise PvP, or that Terry Potter invoked the spirit of World of Warcraft to justify nerfing all of my fucking gear. I guess that at least explains why we have PvP normalisation, weapons that shoot like magic wands, and Terry is always banging on about rogues. The TLDR is they pretty much did everything they said they wouldn't do, and probably did everything you were worried they might do. The incoming changes are a fucking train wreck, Yolo, and a middle finger to the community, and let's be honest, they went back on a few promises. The Division 2 is shaping up to be exactly the same game of balancing roulette as the previous title. You grind some gear, min-max your loadout, fall in love, have a 2-week romance, then they roll out a bunch of changes, which fucking destroys everything, and then you are all alone again. I can't in good faith discuss how this will affect players using skills I've not tried out or invested in, so I'll just use this one example. Patience is my favourite gear perk as a solo player. After being in cover for 5 seconds, armour repairs by 5% every 3 seconds. After the patch, I will need to invest 9 fucking points in defence to make that work. So basically, in order to get this to work now, I pretty much have to trade away most of my DPS, and that is with 0 skill to start with. What's the point of this now? Have the ability to self-repair your armour whilst doing absolutely nothing useful because all your gear is built around defence? They should rename this skill, hide in a fucking dustbin, and be ineffective. Even a brief look at the gear changes leads to the obvious and inevitable conclusion that the green gear sets were so fucking completely piss weak and pointless they opted to break everyone else's gear to compensate. This is about as sensible as trying to remove a zit on your nose with a fucking shotgun. Sure, it will work, but as a solution I doubt it would be very popular. The new gear tiering system is also a giant firecracker in the rectum for solo PvE players, with 515 gear dropping only in the DZ, and even higher gear dropping in raids. The new social class structure of Victorian Division is shaping up like this. A lot of us feel quite sold out by this shit fuckery. They are casually nerfing our gear because lols. They're giving priority loot to PvP. They are rendering a lot of builds useless. They're giving us balancing PTSD. I don't want to dwell too much on these proposed changes because right now Massive is flapping around in the water, changing direction every time they hear another person shouting. But if they proceed along these lines, making huge changes on a whim, they will piss off a lot of players. People are fed up of having their gear sets wrecked every few weeks. We've been through this with the Division 1. Right now, at best, it just looks like they're breaking things to create drama and increase player engagement. They're making us grind our gear over again to increase player engagement. They're forcing people into the DZ to increase player engagement. How about making the game work properly to increase player engagement? Just a thought. On the plus side, at least they're working to improve the shitty exotic weapons we all work so hard to get. Personally, I found the Liberty Exotic Desert Eagle to be an enormous anticlimax. Its recoil, rate of fire and accuracy is as unpleasant as dog shit and Bacofoil toothpaste. The Deagle in real life is this. The Deagle in the Division is like this. Fixie, please. feedback is important to this whole process apparently. And I quote, "These are some drastic changes, but they're also shaped by your feedback." Well, the community has been very vocal about a few issues, like being forced into the fucking DZ, and that has been completely ignored. I gave some feedback to Freddie Thailander, and he immediately blocked my account on Twitter. Marco Style gave Freddie Thailander feedback, and he blocked his Twitter account too. Right now, it appears they don't give a shit about feedback. They have their grand plan, and they're cherry picking opinions that agree with that. And if you personally don't, you might as well shout into a fucking bucket for all the good it will do you. Look, in the nicest possible way, if developers are going to put themselves out there and make grandiose boasts about listening to the players, 1, they have to actually listen, and 2, they can't just block people if they disagree with them. Jesus, they should spend 5 minutes reading the comment section of any YouTuber that criticises the Division to see what their own fanboys dish out. I don't see anyone from Massive saying, "Hey guys, you should be polite when people criticise the bugs and the microtransactions." Seriously, if people are getting upset because someone called their weapon mods stupid, you should see some of the verbal abuse Division fanboys throw around on a routine basis. I got called, literally, a fat cunt 10 times in one thread, and Massive's subreddit moderators thought it was fucking brilliant. Look, I would like to think that we can all, as a community, discuss this stuff in a civil manner, whether we agree or not. But this said, I don't think Massive is in a position to lecture anyone about how to conduct themselves on social media, and it's frankly a bit childish for their representatives to start blocking everyone that doesn't agree with their every pronouncement and tip their hat and curtsy. Anyway, Massive seems to have reacted badly to criticism of their spectacularly fucking shit weapon mods, and instead of fixing the broken ass mods, they threw their rattle out of the pram and just broke them. I think this is punishing the players for complaining, frankly. I get it, with the trade-off philosophy in principle. In the Division 1 the mods were far from perfect, but at least you would trade off some benefits against others. In the original mods in the Division 2, it wasn't really about compromising one benefit against a negative. Compromise is, for example, gaining extra crit damage, but at the cost of max magazine size. Compromise is not, let me stamp on your bollocks and I'll give you a fucking biscuit. The original mods were fucking stupid. There was no point using them because the negatives were so huge. So what did they do? They quickly ran through the entire list and pretty much made all of them plus 5% something or minus 5% something else. Sorry, but going through the mods and pretty much writing plus or minus 5 something next to all of them is low effort. Single stack cookie cutter mod stats. Seriously, that is only slightly more effort than you would need to design a fucking Pez dispenser. I take that back. The new mods required much less effort than designing a Pez dispenser. It's worth noting that the grind for all 188 blueprint recipes is hard enough as it is, without diluting the pool with 77 mods. Now consider the fact that most of the weapon mods are useless. Well, that makes for some pretty depressing grinding, I can tell you. There's nothing quite like having a long battle to take a level 3 control point only to win a blueprint for a weapon mod that gives you plus 5% stability or some other useless shit. Well, the dam is breaking on the community mind control project, despite the best efforts of the community mind control officers and their subservient minions running the Division 2 subreddit and Discord. And when I say running, I obviously mean banning lots of players and taking free trips to Las Vegas. People are starting to complain faster than their comments can be deleted. It's like that scene in World War Z where they climb over the Israeli border wall. They just can't shoot them fast enough to stem the flood. And that is a deliberate analogy on two fronts. First off, I'm pretty sure the moderators view us all as mindless zombies and would prefer to keep us all out of the subreddit. And secondly, I suspect that they would actually prefer to shoot us, if they could possibly get away with it. Typical complaints are along the following lines. everything is a bit shit and broken. Apart from the new high-end gear sets, which are totally shit and totally broken. Like a train where the guys at the front are shouting choo choo and claiming we're heading towards Nirvana. As the train steams closer towards the cliff edge, finally the passengers at the back have started decoupling the carriages and disconnecting themselves from the bullshit express. There was, however, one comment that had me in hysterics though. Some well-meaning fanboy was nobly shouting instructions at the community, demanding that they stop making comments about the game being broken. To which I would humbly retort, why? It is fucking broken. Even Ubisoft acknowledges that now. Look, enough people have finally reached endgame and racked up enough hours to rightfully come to the conclusion that despite the hype, creativity and great ideas, the game at its core needs a lot of fucking repair and maintenance work done before it's even close to getting up to code. If the Division 2 was a skyscraper, it would win every architecture and design award out there. But the second they tried to open the building, the fire safety inspector and health and safety executive would immediately shut it down for essential emergency building work. Despite my ramblings and rantings, I've repeatedly said the Division 2 is full of brilliant ideas, great design, and at times is beautiful. But this is offset by a myriad of problems that strike right to the core of its gameplay. You see, my general enjoyment of the game at any given moment is constantly being dictated by the balance of good stuff versus the bad, broken, shitty, fucked up stuff. Sometimes the game loop is about exploration, accomplishment and exciting combat. But sometimes, when lots of things go wrong all at the same time, the game loop for the solo player can be exactly like my experiences a few nights ago. I went to do the Capitol building mission, it bugged out and wouldn't let me through the first stage, locking me out of further progress. After wasting an hour trying to reset it or fix it, I got fucked off and went to do a level 3 control point. I raised the alert status by capping a couple of locations and got to work. This turned into an epic long battle, and when the very last elite NPC was left, it stayed out at long range, so I ended up sniping him with the autocannon. And then, after a few minutes of standing around waiting for something to happen, I get a prompt to fire a flare for more reinforcements, because mine had somehow evaporated. Nothing happens for a few minutes, so out of impatience I fire the flare, and the whole of the fucking defence stage starts over, because of some kind of bug. Only now I'm being bum rushed by 4 elite NPCs, my settlers have vanished, and I fucking die. Despite being fucking useless for the entirety of the battle, in the 2 minutes it takes me to revive and run back to the control point, my fucking useless hipster fuckheads miraculously wiped out all the enemy NPCs and took the base. I get no recognition for completing the cap, and when I go to the storeroom, all the boxes are empty apart from 2. I get 3 ceramic and 4 steel. So after several hours of gaming, all I got for my fucking efforts was a few crafting materials, and every single fucking thing I tried to achieve had gone to rat shit because of bugs with this game. This is sometimes the game loop of the Division 2 as a solo player. On top of this, now they're talking about giving priority loot to PvP, nerfing my favourite gear perks and ruining my solo build. And it's making some players regret not waiting 6 months before buying the game. You see, this is what happens when you release a game before it's anywhere near finished, balanced or finalised. They are making this shit up as they go along because they haven't fucking decided what they want this game to be. So get used to the idea of having your min-max gear wrecked regularly and the game turned upside fucking down every few weeks, because I'm not convinced they have a fucking clue where they're heading. They haven't worked it out yet, because it should have been released in 6 months' time. Now Massive is between a rock and a hard place. The Division 2 is currently too broken on PC to be considered a finished project, and they ain't gonna make players feel better about that by completely rebalancing the game every 3 fucking weeks. And that is my overarching impression at the moment. They are flapping around, guessing wildly, as demonstrated by this week's State of the Game, where they broke their promises about not having exclusive loot locked to specific activities and just fucked PvE in the arse and put the highest level gear score loot in the DZ. Which they only did as a panic reaction because all the Division PvPers have fucked off to play Rainbow Six Siege, Battlefield 5 and Call of Duty because the PvP isn't that good anymore. My personal, short-term advice to massive studios is this. Stop making desperate short-term panic decisions. Spend a bit more time thinking about the consequences of your actions. Keep the balance changes small and incremental. Make the loot available to all players in all activities, like you fucking promised. And most importantly, fix the fucking game. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.